JJ, thank you, man. Thank you for being with me today. I've been looking forward to this one all week. I said before we started recording that Brian touched on the southern border issue, and I put a mental note in my head. I was like, I gotta find somebody. And then 10 minutes later, he was like, hey man, I have the guy. So thank you so much for talking to me today, man. I'm really looking forward to this.
I appreciate you having me on, and I believe illegal immigration, the way that is transpired since Biden's taken office, and what you're dealing with in Canada with Trudeau, is the intentional destruction of our immigration system to fundamentally transform America. And those are not my words; those are the elites and the politicians' words they use. So I believe this is a very important topic, and I'm ready to get into any section of illegal immigration because it all comes back to the reset, changing the demographics of your nation, and then ultimately transforming your nation, if you like it or not. Now it's just a math problem in America.
Yeah. So, okay. Why don't you give our listeners a bit of your background so they understand where you specialize on this?
Okay, I believe I have a very unique perspective, and this is why. There are people that go down the border and take videos, and I love those guys, and they're very good. They're very good investigative journalists. However, they're not going to understand the inner workings like I do. I had a 24-year career in the United States Border Patrol. I cut my teeth. I got my first duty assignment in Imperial Beach, California. So if you look all the way down the southwesternmost point of the United States of America, that's where I worked, in Imperial Beach. It was the most violent times in recent modern day Border Patrol history. I ran ATV units, fist fights all night long. All I arrested was rapists, murderers, drug dealers, pedophiles, gang members. That's all I did in that area, because that was a zone where individuals be deported, criminals deported, and they come back over and I would arrest them or try to. And then I became a supervisor there. And then I made a lateral transfer up to Southern California, and I created a maritime narcotic and human smuggling team on the land side. I know it's kind of oxymoron, but once walls work. So after we put the infrastructure in San Diego sector, all the human smugglers started to use the open bow fishing vessels called pangas, Mexican fishing vessels, and they would jam 35 people in there, and they would go out in the Pacific Ocean about 100 miles out, if you can believe it, and then come into the coastline and drop off their loads. My team would see all the telltale signs of a smuggling event happening. We would locate the panga using our very high-powered cameras that looked out into the ocean, and then we'd arrest them. Sinaloa cartel was able to determine, okay, the human smugglers found a route. They pushed them out, and then we became basically a narcotic unit. And all we arrested from San Diego to Santa Barbara, California, is about 170 miles of coastal land front. And that's something I'm very proud of, because one of my guys went and testified against El Chapo Guzman, the notorious Sinaloa narco smuggler, and helped put him in jail, because that's all we arrested was all his Sinaloa cartel loads. Crazy times, violent, very unsafe, irrational, but I loved it. It would be, just for example, I'd be in Santa Barbara with me and 5 agents, and we would take down a narco load of 30 people by ourselves, and it was chaotic and insane, but I thrived in that world. I took a promotion up into a interior station about 45 miles north of the border, and this is where my perspective broadens, because now not only can I tell you exactly what's happening on the border, how the policies are being misused, how the law is being abused, but I can tell you from a 30,000-foot view how those unlawful policies and unconstitutional orders are coming down from DHS and being pushed down to the troops. I believe, just so your audience is clear, and I will never sugarcoat this, I believe Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas is a traitor. He is the tip of the spear. I write about him in my book, a whole chapter about him. He's the tip of the spear. He has destroyed the American immigration system. It's in shambles. And he is ushering in a complete demographic shift of America. And the numbers are staggering. We're at 11,000 arrests a day. Just before we get into I just need to put in context. 11,000 people are being arrested every single day. Okay. 80% of the 2,000 southern border miles on the Mexican border unmanned at any given time. This has never happened. Everything that we're going to talk about today, everything is 35 months ago. We never did any of this. This is never, everything they're doing, we've never done. This is unlawful, it's unconstitutional, and it's treason.
Wow. So, okay. So during your time as an agent, I would assume, and you alluded to this, that the most of your arrests and most of what you were doing along the border in California was dealing with Mexican drug cartels, correct?
Drug cartels and human smugglers, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so how has that changed in the last, I mean, really short period? I mean, is it still, I mean, okay. So in Canada, I'm from a town called Richmond, British Columbia. Richmond in British Columbia, in that province. And Vancouver is a very unique place because, as I explained to Brian, it was ground zero for the CCP invasion into Canada. I mean, literally, the town where I'm from was point A. It was the first point, and that started roughly in the mid '90s. Now, we have a gigantic fentanyl problem in British Columbia. I'm now in Alberta. I've since left because Vancouver as a city and British Columbia as a province are completely falling apart because of this. But we have a massive fentanyl problem in the western, on the west coast of Canada, and it's 100% because of CCP related organized crime. Now, I guess the question I want to ask you is, during your time there, or were you seeing the beginnings of the fentanyl crisis unfolding in front of you?
I did once my career spanned all the way into my last year in the Border Patrol. I was a deputy patrol agent in charge, and that was Biden's first year in office. So I've only been retired 2 years. My last year was Biden's first year. And I saw what was going to happen. Could I envision the level and how broad it is and deep the corruption is? No, nobody could ever imagine what's happening today. But all the telltale signs were there. Fentanyl is relatively new, right? But it's devastating America. Let me give you an example. Donald Trump's last year in office, 50,000 overdose deaths, 60-70% of it were fentanyl. He said this is an epidemic. It's a tragedy. We can't have this. Fast forward to by the end of Biden's second year, because of open borders, OD deaths doubled to 107,000. And this year, in his third year, it will go to over 150,000. And it's because the open borders. We have no borders. So you asked me, was I dealing with cartel members? So you have to think of the border as a business, okay? You have the human smugglers, which are kind of lower level criminal organization. And then you have the narco smugglers that have trillions of dollars, not billions. They have like $1 trillion+, okay? So money's not the object, and violence is their currency. So what the Mexican narco smugglers have done is they've come and they've taken over the human smuggling, because the volume of it is now become $100 billion, $200 billion a year business. So the cartels run everything on the border. No one crosses. They have to pay a fee. It's a fee right on the spot, or you're going to send money from wherever you go, or I'm going to put you into sex traffic bondage, work bondage, whatever it's going to be. When you start looking at, like you alluded to, what was it like when I was in the Border Patrol compared to now? And I tell people, listen, it's not 30 years ago. I'm talking 35 months ago since Biden's taken office. Let me give you an example of how insane this is. I was just interviewing on my podcast, my mentor, his name's Joe Ralph. And I asked Joe Ralph, I said, Joe, in my career, Joe is about 10 years senior to me. And he went through a really wild time on the border as we were building the infrastructure prior to me coming. I've arrested, directly or indirectly, over 10,000 people, but let's just say 10,000. In my career, arresting 10,000 people, I released zero. I released zero into America. Everyone was put in jail. set up for deportation or voluntarily return them to Mexico. Joe Ralph said he's arrested about 100,000, directly or indirectly. He released 3 in a 23-year career. Fast forward to today, every single person that crosses the border is released.
Why?
Why? Because they're going to fundamentally transform America.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. You're absolutely. That's a great question. Why? Well, that's the question I throw back on people that interview me. Why do you think? If you don't think that, you don't believe me, like all my data is correct, it's all from DHS. Fact check me to death. Let's just make an understanding that the data I'm telling you is DHS data and it's facts. I don't believe DHS. They've already been caught lying, but let's just use their data, okay? And then I say this is a fundamental transformation of America. And the pushback I get is, well, that sounds crazy. And I say, okay, well then tell me why. They're releasing over 300,000 people a month. That's how many people are crossing into America. Over 300,000. Last year in FY 2023, we arrested 3.2 million people and released them all. And I will argue that at least another 3.2 to 7 million people crossed open border undetected. When Joe Biden's term ends in 1 year, please God, don't let him get reelected or steal another election. He will have allowed in 25 to 27 million people into America.
That's wild.
You cannot sustain it. So, and people say, well, you know, a demographic shift, you're a racist. And I go, okay, hold on. Let me go further on this. This is no longer a race issue because there's 195 nations on planet Earth. 180 of them have been arrested. 180 nations have been arrested by the Border Patrol. Every skin color, ethnicity, race, religious belief, whatever you want to categorize people, they've all crossed. This has now become a demographic shift from citizens to non-citizens. Over 50 million people that live in America are not natural born Americans. 50 million. So what I'm saying is 1 in 6.5 people living in America are not Americans. How do you think that plays out over time?
Yeah, well, so this is, I mean, if you want to go back to, you know, why I think a big component is that we've been, I mean, I know this in Canada, and I'm pretty sure the same in the United States. At a societal level, we've been captured by a neo-Marxist ideology that basically that promotes open borders, right? The idea is everybody should be free to come here and be part of this wonderful place in this wonderful country, which is fantastic. That's a great idea when it's, you know, managed. Right. When the people are being vetted, when you know for sure that you're bringing in people who plan to assimilate into the pre-existing culture and society and contribute to it. But when you're talking, you know, 30 million people, there's just it's just completely unsustainable. Now, with the policy, the immigration policy and the changes that you've seen over the last 35 months, it correlates to other Western nations, right? We saw this in Germany. We saw this happen in Western Europe. I mean, it's what triggered Britain to leave the European Union, right? Because they saw the problems that were happening with just completely unmanaged immigration. And so now in the United States, I mean, I've been watching videos on this and I'm blown away. I can't believe it. It's like a nightmare scenario. You just have tens of thousands of people crossing into the United States every single day, completely unchecked. Now, okay, so let's talk about this like from a top-down perspective. What changed at DHS? Was it just the Biden administration rewriting a lot of the rules? Is that what it boils down to?
Yes, because they came in, they took all of Trump's policies and threw them away. Let me give you an example. So at the end of Trump's term, we were arresting anywhere from 150 to 450, 500 people a day. That's nothing, right? Nothing. Because everybody we arrested was deported. Joe Biden takes office. I'm sitting at my desk. I'm looking, my 24-hour report comes down from Washington, D.C. I open it up. Now we're over 5,000 a day. From 150 to 450 to 5,000. That fast, because he said, if you go back and look at his declarations and his stump speeches from his basement, he said, I'm gonna welcome people. Everyone's welcome to America. So we watched from law enforcement perspective, our intelligence videos, etc., coming up, caravans, people wearing Biden's my president. We love Biden. We knew we were in trouble. So what Mayorkas did, Secretary of Homeland Security, is he took policies within DHS, broadened them, called them pathways, right? Broadened them. So let me give you two examples. He took asylum and destroyed asylum, completely destroyed it. Meaning he said asylum used to be, if you got 10 people for asylum, 9.5 would be kicked out. They would just be like, okay, your asylum's denied. Now they're at like a 95 to 99% approval rating, meaning they're just approving, okay? So he brought in millions of people under the false premise of asylum to destroy the system, okay? I'm going to come back to that just so he destroyed the system. He took another, in conjunction with asylum, he took another policy within DHS called parole. Now this parole in federal immigration is, it doesn't even mean the same thing as parole in state and local government, where I'm letting you out of jail. You're going to be on parole. If you screw up again, I'm going to put you back in jail. This is not what parole is. Parole is, we would use it. I think I used it once or twice in my whole career. I would arrest somebody for narco smuggling or human smuggling, and then the task forces would take over my case and they would parole a material witness into America for like 10 days so they can go to court, and then they would usher them back into Mexico, Guatemala, wherever. That's changed. Now they've taken parole and destroyed it and are paroling millions of people in. Now, how does this tie into asylum? I'll give you an example. So I'm a Haitian man with my wife and 2 kids, and I come up with some crazy ass asylum, whatever. I fear for my life or whatever they make up at the time. I'm the Border Patrol agent. I asked the Haitian, where are you going? I'm going to New York City. Okay, give me your address. And I give him a notice to appear. It's called an NTA. And in the NTA, in the bottom box, it tells you where to go, when to go, and what time's your court. And you have to present yourself to the immigration court. I parole you in for 60 days. You can't see an immigration judge or an ICE officer to 2032 in New York City. So that Haitian man goes to New York City. I either give him a notice to appear or I mail it to his address, whatever the F address is.
You can cuss if you want. It's all good.
Yeah. So he gives this. So he goes to New York City. So let me bring this full circle. He goes to New York City. He can't present himself to an ICE officer. He can't see an immigration judge. So his parole ends. And when his parole ends, he becomes an illegal alien. Okay? So now we have millions of illegal aliens in our country because they can't see the immigration judge, because asylum cases are at least 3 million cases backlog. 3 million. Okay? What the document that we don't give this Haitian man, this will all make sense in a second. What we don't give this Haitian man is a work authorization document. So I welcomed them in, I paroled them, they went out of status, they're illegal aliens, and they can't work. Why would we do that to millions of people? Well, because big agriculture, big business, big service industries that lobby through the Chamber of Commerce want cheap labor. So this is how immoral our government is. So we have workers, and then below, underneath the black market slave labor, is all these millions of illegal aliens that have to work under the table. Do you see how this all comes full circle and how malicious this all is? So Secretary Mayorkas, who is a traitor, created this system. Now, when you look and talk about Mayorkas, you got to understand, people think that Mayorkas fell out of the sky and landed it as a deputy. He's been doing this for over a decade. He created every immigration policy that we're dealing with today. He created DACA. He created catch and release. He was the director of USCIS, which is the major component of the immigration system. He was there. He knew the inner workings. He became second in charge under Obama and then became the secretary under Biden. We're looking at the whole, when I say the whole system has collapsed, so you have immigration, you have asylum cases that I can't see till 2032. The dockets are packed. You can't, in California, the dockets are 2027, packed. Do you understand that there's less than 1,000 asylum officers in America? So you have less than 1,000 asylum officers in America that are trying to adjudicate 3 million cases. It will never happen. It will see. That is the MO. When you look back to Ronald Reagan and you look back to all this, all the amnesties and stuff, the way they do it is they crumble the system, make it unworkable, and then they say we need amnesty to flush the system, and then we'll start over. So that is the final piece of this puzzle is when Biden wins, if he wins, within the first year, you will hear the cries for amnesty, and it will be closer to 30, 40 million people receiving amnesty.
Yeah, it's strange because the old, I think it was Churchill who said if you, when you're young, if you're not a liberal, you don't have a heart. When you're old and you're not a conservative, you don't have a brain, right? And I'm kind of,
it's true.
I turned 40 last year, and I'm kind of in that transition. Well, no, I've transitioned, but I started my life, my political life in terms of just being aware of what's happening in the world,
right,
as very much a progressive. And I was always of the mind that, hey, if you want to come to our country and work and be part of this thing and contribute to it, then by all means, come on in, but it's strange because, I'm listening to what you're saying, and it seems like this idea of love and compassion and taking in the poor and the starving and it's really just you're basically condemning these people to a lifetime of indentured servitude. I mean, basically that's what we're doing, or at least in the United States. There were, and I would say in Canada too, we're importing slaves because these people are essentially, that's what they're going to be if they're working illegally, on farms and and in agriculture. These people are going to be making pennies on the dollar to do a job that an American would be paid 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 times that amount for. And so essentially we've created an additional system of slavery that's technically legal because the Department of Homeland Security has authorized it.
Yes, they authorized it, and they removed all the special agents in ICE and Homeland Security that are responsible for workforce enforcement, workplace enforcement, and finding illegal aliens. Look, we have over 5 million people in America that have already been through the legal system, and the judge said, no, you're deportable, and they refused to leave. 5 million. 5 million. Look, the thing that scares me the most, though, man, is let me tell you how things have completely changed in 35 months. Prior, I would arrest mainly, vast majority, 85, 90%, all Mexican nationals, right? Guatemalans, Hondurans, some El Salvadorians, mainly MS-13. And then every now and then I would get a crazy North Korean or something like that. It'd be bizarre, right? That's been changed. So now Mexican nationals are the majority minority, meaning they make up less than 50% of our total apprehensions. What we're seeing now, and it scares, and I have all kinds of data on this, and on the boots on the ground telling me, you have millions and millions of single adult military age men pouring into America from terrorist nations, and we're releasing them all. I know for a fact, and now even the elites are agreeing to it. There are hundreds of thousands of special interest aliens, and I'll tell you what that is, and thousands of terrorists in America now. Christopher Wray, our FBI director, even admitted it last week and goes, yes, there's terrorists here and we don't know where they are. Okay, that's from the director of FBI. So we have a thing called special interest aliens. These are people that come from nations that support terrorism or they're nations of terrorism. Let me tell you how rare this was for me. I can remember less than 5 people that I arrested that were special interest aliens or had oversight of my station. we would turn them over to a joint terrorism task force called JTTF, run by FBI. They would come and interview the individual. And then once they determined that individual was a terrorist, it'd be like Men in Black, right? That movie, they would be gone. We would never see them again. I don't know what the hell they did with them. If they weren't, they would turn them back to us and say, JJ, I cannot determine where Mohammed from Sudan, if he's really this Mohammed I'm looking for, right? Because it's so convoluted. I'd say, okay, I got him. I would turn him over to ICE. ICE would find the next flight back to Sudan and drop him off. Never, never, never would I release that person. If I released that person, I would be fired. Fired. Okay? Then I'd be interrogated because I would have to be compromised. What's happened in 35 months? FY 2022, 25,000 special interest aliens. 2020, 2021, 2020 was 1,970 special interest aliens. We jumped to 2022, it's 25,000. FY 2023 that just ended, 80,000 special interest aliens, and we released them all. All of them are released. And I'm talking high-level people in terrorism released into our society. So we went from 35 months ago, JJ Carrell, the deputy patrol agent in charge in San Diego sector. If I released a special interest alien, I would have my gun and badge taken from me. I'd put on a rubber gun squad and be suspended and ultimately fired. 35 months later, I'm releasing all of them into America.
Yeah, that is, I mean, it's like there's no words for it, right? Because you're basically creating so yeah, okay. So I'll tell you a little bit of a story, and this will pale in comparison to yours. Okay. So years ago in Vancouver, we had a massive, well, I wouldn't call it a massive, but a large number of Salvadoran and Honduran immigrants end up here. And it was because Canada, and as I'm sure you're aware, has always been the easier road for a lot of illegal immigrants.
Yes.
A lot of illegal immigrants fly into Canada and then they cross the border into the United States because it's actually easier that way. There's nobody looking up here, right?
Nope.
And so what ended up happening was we had a lot of MS-13 and I think 18th Street gangbangers that ended up in Vancouver, and they started to get involved in the drug trade in Vancouver, and these people were wildly violent. I am talking next level. These people will cut you across the hip and gut you for nothing. And it was just, we just saw this sudden explosion in violence. And again, this isn't 1 million or 2 million or even 40,000 people. This is maybe 10 to 20,000 at the most. Right. And it was a massive problem. And we had drug wars going on within the city. This was also at the time where we were doing in Vancouver. There was a big cocaine for marijuana trade going across the border because BC marijuana was in high demand in the United States. So what was happening is the cartels were exchanging cocaine almost ounce for ounce with marijuana. So the profits were immeasurable because for us in BC, a pound of marijuana was, $1,100-$1,200 because there was so much of it. Whereas you would just take it into Washington State and you'd go ounce for ounce with cocaine. You're talking 50 times, a 50 times profit immediately once it crosses the border. So we had this weird pressure cooker situation where we had all of these gangbangers who were in Vancouver, who were, I guess, either there to stay or working their way across the border. I don't know how they all ended up settling there, but that was a very small amount of people. Now, when you're talking 80,000 terrorists, not gangbangers, terrorists being let loose on your country, you're creating a scenario where, God knows what's going to happen in the future. And I posed this to Brian when I talked to him, and he actually corrected me because I called it a civil war. And he said, well, technically what you're talking about here is an insurgency, right? Now, how realistic is it to think that in the future, you're potentially going to be dealing with an actual terrorist insurrection within the United States borders?
We are going to. It's not an if question, it's a when question. And you alluded to this earlier. You talked about Europe. You're absolutely right. Europe imported and allowed all these boat migrants were all military-age men from Middle East and Africa, the continent of Africa. And now what are you seeing? France was on fire. It burnt to the ground. Their Library of Congress, which was holding books from 1100 AD, burnt to the ground. A concrete structure burnt to the ground. This is happening in France. France now is trying to deport all these people. Germany, the most liberal nation in the EU, trying to deport them. Finland, Sweden, trying to deport them because they're like 5 years ahead of us in America. And so their countries are destabilized, being destabilized. 5 months ago, I've been saying this for years since Biden's taken office, but 6 months ago, I would go on interviews and people would just go, I don't believe you. And I go, okay, all right, you don't have to believe me. This is what's happening. Now, fast forward to today. In the last week or two, you have major senators on both sides of the aisle, congressmen, Secretary Mayorkas even had to admit to it, and Director Wray are now openly saying, well, yes, there's quite a few terrorists in our nation. Well, how many is quite a few? And they won't give it to them. Senator Johnson for Wisconsin said, well, I'll give you the answer. We have 6 million people in America. That 6 to 7 million you've allowed in, plus all the getaways. How many are there? There's tens of thousands. They wouldn't answer. There are tens of thousands of terrorists in America, and they're waiting for their call. Listen, when you look at videos, just as an audience, if you start to see videos come out from Ben Bergquam and Anthony Aguayo, they're people, they're investigative journalists sending videos out from down on the border, or Michael Yon down in Panama and the Darien Gap. Just look at the videos and count how many women and children you see. You don't see them. They're all military-age men coming into America. So, okay, let's just say I'm completely wrong, okay? Let's just say I have 100,000. DHS says they've arrested and released 105, 107, 106,000 in the last 2 years. Let's just say 100,000 for simple math, okay? Let's say I am so grossly wrong. Let's say I'm 99% wrong. 99%. That still leaves 1,000 terrorists. Are you okay with 1,000 terrorists being in America? I'm 99% wrong.
Yeah.
1,000. Are you okay with me being 99.9% wrong? How many terrorists it took to take down 2 World Trade Center and destroy America's economy? 19. I'm telling you there's 108,000, 105,000 that we know of. I'm not talking about the hundreds of miles that we have millions, listen, millions of people that cross the border. We have no idea. And as my colleagues and I talk about this, my former colleagues, we always say, almost exasperated to each other, JJ, why do you think everyone that crosses the border is released? Why would those people run through the desert, get in a boat, go through tunnels, go through all that and all that danger to get across America when all they have to do is cross the border, squat and say, here I am, and they release them? Because those are the people that can't be released, and they know it. So we have millions of people that would never be allowed into America are being released, being just let in, because there's no one there. There's no, again, 35 months ago, there was a Border Patrol agent patrolling every inch of the southern border. Now, as you and I are speaking right now, 80% of the border has no one there. No one. It's unbelievable. It's like having this beautiful house and you have 5 doors all around your house and you took 4 of the doors off. And then you come back a week later and you're like, how did they get in my house?
Yeah.
Well, you have 4, your doors are off the hinges, you idiot. Of course people are going to come in and steal, or animals are going to come in and destroy your house. That's what we're looking at. I'm telling you, and I pray every night that I'm wrong. I don't take any joy in telling you this, but I know I'm correct. You're going to see terrorist attacks in America because you have allowed them to come into our nation, and they've allowed it to happen because they want to destroy America. That's the only explanation, is they want to destroy America. If I would tell you this, I always like to play this game. Let's go back and Brian calls it the Wayback Machine, right? Let's go win the Wayback Machine. And let's go back 36 months before Biden takes office. And I told you that Joe Biden's going to hire somebody that is a natural born citizen from the communist nation Cuba. And he's going to put that person in charge of your immigration, of your largest law enforcement apparatus in America. And then that person is going to systematically change all the laws to look like a communist nation. And he's going to let millions of people into your nation, like tens of millions, and they're going to flood into a nation. What would you call that person? And everyone says, well, I'll call that person a traitor. Well, I said, well, that's Secretary Mayorkas. He's a naturalized citizen from the communist nation of Cuba that hates America, has created policies and laws that to destroy American immigration system, to fundamentally transform America. And everyone's shocked. And I'm just going to call it as I see it. I see him as a traitor. He came from a communist nation, and he believes in communism. He believes in Marxist ideals, and he believes America greatness is from ill-gotten gains, and he's destroying America. There's no other way around it. And if you look at, it's the tentacles of this are insane. And I mean, I have numbers for you from Chinese nationals that are pouring in. You talked about the CCP coming in to Vancouver. Listen to what, this is so infuriating to me because I see it like you're a father, I'm a father.
Mm-hmm.
I see it. Like everyone is so mired in day-to-day life, just trying to get through life. No one ever looks to the future. I'm looking in the future and it's scary. And I'm not a guy that gets frightened, but I'm telling you, let me just give you these numbers. In China, Chinese nationals, vast majority of single adult males, we're at war with China. If you can say whatever you want, we're in war with China.
Yeah. In
2021, this is since Joe Biden's taken office. Listen to these numbers. In 2021, he arrested 23,000 Chinese nationals. In 2022, he arrested 27,000. Last year in 2023, our fiscal years in America run from October 1 to September 30th. So it just ended, 53,000.
Jesus.
This month, the first month of FY 2024, over 7,000. So you speculate that out over 12 months, you're looking at 90,000 people from China. Michael Yan, investigative journalist, and Darian Gap are all coming back with reports of these Chinese nationals share 4 things in common. 5 things. They're all military-aged adult male. They all have the same haircuts. They wear the same clothes. They have the similar tattoos, and they all have very unique IDs. What subset of Americans fit that category? And those are called soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
So you have allowed into our nation tens of thousands of soldiers from CCP. And what, I don't know if you watched this last week, the communist dictator Xi came to America. Mm-hmm. And in America, in San Francisco, you had Chinese flags covered the city of San Francisco. Mm-hmm. It was like we were being occupied.
Yep.
They're normalizing us to occupation. They're normalizing us to the dangers that are coming to America in a very short time. And if you don't like it, it makes you feel uneasy. You don't like the way I speak. You don't like anything about me. Explain to me how we're on pace to have 100,000 Chinese nationals be arrested and released in America this year. And you are not having your hair on your back of your neck stand up.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, listen, I can speak to this completely because in the on the west coast of Canada, we were 30 years. This was 30 years ago. But the difference was is so Vancouver was basically a washing machine for CCP and cash from the CCP and Chinese millionaires who were tied to the CCP and Chinese organized crime that was tied to the CCP. We have a brilliant independent journalist here in Canada. Her name's Andy Lee. She's been on top of this for years. But what happened was it started in my little town in Richmond, which prior to their arrival was a little We were over the bridge. We were the country. We were a little fishing town. My mom was a single mom. It was mostly single moms, lower income families. And then overnight, it was like, I told Brian, it was like my neighborhood looked like Beirut. All of the family homes were torn down. I'm talking, 2 out of every 3. And these giant mansions were erected. And what they were doing was they were sending their money over to Canada and getting it into real estate to get their money in the country, right? And a lot of these people weren't even physically coming to the country. They were just getting their money here. I would ride my bike down the road at night and all the lights would be off in these mansions, like whole city blocks, because they weren't physically coming to the country. They were just planting their money there. We also had massive money laundering operations going on through our casinos. If you're ever interested, look into the River Rock Casino in Richmond, British Columbia. That was a huge scandal. Now, fast forward 20, 30 years, we have a situation where the CCP influence has infected all of our federal government, most of the provincial government in British Columbia, but mostly our federal government. We have CCP donors left, right, and center for the Liberal Party. Now, the last federal election, we had robocalls, and I was in BC at the time. I got a call from I guess a Chinese organization, basically saying that if the Conservative Party in Canada were to be elected as the federal government, that all Chinese nationals would be deported back to China. And so you had to vote Liberal in order to be able to stay in the country. It was just absolutely fucking, I can't even put words to it. When I received that call, I couldn't believe it. And that was the level of propaganda that was going on around that election. So we have a federal government here in Canada that is very, very closely tied to the CCP. Now, in the United States, you guys are looking at a very similar scenario now.
Yes, we are.
Let me tell you something. This is the worst possible case. Russia is not the enemy. The people who are really trying to infiltrate and rip everything to pieces is China, the communist Chinese. That is who's coming for you, not the Russians. Putin is not interested in doing what the Chinese are interested in doing to America.
I absolutely 100% agree. Absolutely. And what you're seeing in your nation is happening in ours. We have Chinese nationals that are buying corporations, buying up houses, buying up farmland. Just today, Jenny Tier from Daily Caller, she's a great investigative journalist on ours, is up in Maine, and the Chinese nationals have taken over large sections of Maine and turned them into marijuana growing plants, illegal, and they do nothing about it. They do nothing. They act like it doesn't happen. I like you do. I'm sure you do this. You look beyond. Okay, here's the news. Okay, what are they not telling us? Why are they not telling us? So you look at it. You have our President Biden and his son receive millions of dollars in his family from China. Yeah, they own our president. They own him. Okay, now, granted, Joe Biden doesn't know if tomorrow's Thanksgiving in America or it's New Year's Eve. He has no idea what planet he's on. But he took money and he peddled influence when he did have his senses. So I have I give him no quarter. But our country has devolved America. We are corrupt, we are immoral, and we are sick. We are a nation that has cancer and is dying. And the doctors are like, okay, we can do this. We can remove this cancer. It's going to be painful, but if you don't remove it, you're going to die. And we have America going, that's fine. I want to watch the Kardashians and Christmas is coming. Everything's fine. No, it's not. It's not fine. And that's what I've been saying. Look, I retired 2 years ago. For 6 months, all my buddies would call me that were still working, and I would tell them, pick up the phone or get a text. Don't talk to me about work. I don't ever want to talk about it forever. I moved my family out of California to a rural state. I said, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to know. I did my time. I'm done. And then after about 6 months, I was just like, I can't sit on the sidelines on this. Just because I don't wear my uniform, I have my gun and the badge, I can't sit here silent. This is an abomination. And I got sucked back into it because I can't sit and say, okay, well, I did my time. Well, no, I didn't do my time. Those poor bastards in the Border Patrol can't say anything. They're doing unconstitutional orders. I have to at least be, if even I'm the only voice, to say, look at what they're doing to the border. Look at who they're allowing into our nation. Brian had a great point. I was talking to Brian O'Shea, who's my co-host on Unrestricted Invasion podcast. And I said to Brian, we have allowed in battalions of soldiers and terrorists. And he said, okay, stop thinking of the war in the old terms of here's my battalion, there's your battalion, here's our Navy. Think of small groups of 10, 11, 12 people that are compartmentalized, meaning they're given a mission and no one else knows of that mission except the high guy up top. And then think about thousands of these small groups throughout your nation. And I said, okay, give me an example, Brian, of what a small group could do to just one. He goes, okay, one small group of 10 with their AK-47s, not vests to blow people up because they're soldiers going to go and kill and leave. They go to JFK Airport at 11 o'clock in the morning and go into checking and just mow down 1,000 people and leave. What does that do to America? It closes America, shuts down. One terrorist attack shuts down everything. What happened if 100, everyone was told, here's your thing, but on Thursday at 11 Eastern, you are to conduct your mission. And 100 of those went off in America. America, as we know it, would never be the same. Yeah. Everything would change. Everything. Look at what 19 people did to the World Trade Center, and look at the reaction of our government to create the Patriot Act, where they have a secret court to get warrants to spy on Americans. So America has completely changed, not from the terrorists, but from our reaction as a government and nation. We gave away our constitutional rights, our Fourth Amendment rights. We gave them away to some shadowy, dark room where they go and they get warrants to spy on me as an American. It's unconstitutional. America is living in a time that historians 100, 200 years from now are going to write volumes of how did America allow their nation to be overtaken from people within corruption, and then allowing those evil enemy forces into America. China's not going to stand up an army and go to war toe to toe with us. They're going, and why would you, when you can come inside our nation and kill us from inside out? It makes perfect sense.
So, okay. Actually, I want to jump in here because woke as we know it, as what, what's commonly referred to as woke, is actually postmodern neo-Marxism. And it is 100% a Maoist Chinese invention. It is 100% a Maoist Chinese invention. I've been screaming this forever because so myself personally, I'm fascinated by history and dictators, and Mao Zedong is one that fascinates me particularly because he was the only one that I can pinpoint as being a sadist for the sake of being a sadist. He had no underlying motivation other than power. That was it. That was the only thing he sought. And he wanted to take over the world. And he believed that if he had a nuclear bomb, he could do it. And Stalin was the one who kind of held him back from that. And then when Khrushchev gave him the nuclear bomb, the only thing that saved the world was the fact that he did not have a delivery system for that bomb. But I'm telling you, this cultural revolution that we're experiencing in the West, North America specifically, because that's where we're located, is 100% a Maoist Chinese invention. So how did it end up here? That's the question I think we all need to be asking. How did it get here? What was the pipeline? And what do we do to try to stop this rot from spreading before it consumes us completely? So please,
I don't know how you stop it. No, I don't know how you stop it. I don't, because in America, all of Hollywood, all your education, and now your government is completely run by neo-Marxists, communists, people that hate America. The people hate America are running our nation.
Yes.
When you understand from, and I'm sure you have self-hating Canadians.
Oh,
In America,
it's the only mode of being up here for liberal Canadians. Yes.
That's the same thing with us, because once you come to the understanding that the liberal left progressives hate America, believe that everything America has obtained, their greatness, wealth, power, prestige, is all on the backs of ill-gotten gains, slavery, all that bull crap that they like to say. So therefore, in their brain, we can give it all back because it belongs to the world. And once you come to the understanding, okay, that's how they think, everything makes sense. Like everything makes sense, because if I love something, okay, let me go back to the genesis. He's not the genesis of it, but he's the ushering in of this, is Barack Obama. Barack Obama says, as he's getting elected, I'm going to fundamentally transform America. Nobody said, whoa, hold on a second. When you love something, you don't fundamentally want to transform it. When I got married to my wife, I didn't say, oh, I'm going to marry her, then I'm going to fundamentally transform her. No, I married her because I love her for who she is. Right. Well, he didn't love America. He wanted to fundamentally transform her, and he is transforming her. And once you understand that, everything that's happening irrationally makes rational sense, and then you can attack it. How do we beat it? Here's the craziest thing. How we beat it is what you are doing. You're running your podcast. And you think, because I'm in the same position as you, sometimes I'm talking, and I think, is anybody in this fucking world listening to me? Am I reaching anybody, or am I just screaming in the wind? But you are reaching people, and you're reaching more people than you think. And times thousands, tens of thousands of podcasts, 1 million podcasts of people that are saying the same damn thing, saying, wake up, wake up. And people are going to start, they are starting now. The real question is, are they waking up fast enough and enough time to stop it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I completely agree. And, I want to go back to actually something that you said earlier about the terrorists who are being let loose in America, because there's an added component to this and an added danger. And let's say that let's just say, for the sake of argument, there is no organization. These are just people from known terrorist networks who have been allowed to enter America and live. Okay. So let's look at what's happening currently with Israel and Palestine. Look, we have a very narrow and a very dense view of the world here in the West, because we've been comfortable for a very long time. We don't understand the Arabic world. We don't understand the tensions that exist between Arabic Muslims and Jews in the Middle East. So we have a scenario now where every single day you go on social media, you can see the videos. There are tensions that are beginning to boil over. So let's say you have 80,000 Arabic Muslims from terror networks who are currently settled in the United States, and now this Israel-Palestine conflict has reignited once again, and people are taking to the streets, and Jews have become a target, as we've seen in these videos. Jews have become a target. Jewish businesses. I saw a video last week of Jewish students locked in a library as people were pounding on the windows outside. I couldn't fucking believe it. I was like, is this America? This is America where Jews are.
It is America. Yep. It is America.
So now let's multiply that, right? Let's take that scenario and let's add 80,000 people to it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't even necessarily have to have a situation where people have been organized and instructed to carry out a mission. You just really have to have a scenario where Palestine and Israel are at each other's throats, and Israel is rolling into Palestine and rolling and wiping them off of the face of the earth. That is enough to activate a lot of people in America who have come to America, who have a very
allegiance.
An allegiance to a certain ideology that hates Jews. Right. And that's all it takes.
Yeah. No, you hit on something that I talk about quite a bit, and it's a great point. Look at what's happened since the Palestine-Israeli conflict. You have hundreds of thousands of people, if not 1 million plus, protesting in America, protesting. And when you look at, you don't see American flag. you see Palestinian flags, and you see the jihadist green flags with the black and white writing. Okay. They all have allegiance to the Middle East and Palestine. So like you said, we brought in hundreds of thousands, if not millions. We're throwing in another 80. You take Afghanistan, we brought in over 60,000 Afghanis from our debacle. And do you know that we didn't vet one of them?
Mm-hmm.
Not one of those people that were flying on those jumbo jet airliners was vetted. Not one, and released into America. So let's say you have 500,000. Let's just use that. 500,000 people that have ties to Palestine, Gaza, Iran, Iraq, the Middle East. And get in your brain and think about the protest. Okay? Anti-American, hate America. What happens when America gets involved in the Middle East war, goes to war with China and with the Middle East, and we have a hot war, meaning we're shooting missiles and killing Muslims in the Middle East? Do you think those same people marching are going to pick up their arms, join the military, and go fight and kill their brothers and sisters in the Middle East? Or do you think they're going to pick up their weapons in the interior of America and kill us all? And I'll give you an example of somebody that I highly respect. Retired Colonel Douglas McGregor. Mm-hmm. And he's been on Tucker Carlson, he's highly, highly astute to this. And he said, and I mirror what he says, when we go to war with China and Russia and Iran, he says, we will not fight a single front war. You're gonna fight a double-sided war, because you're gonna fight people inside your nation. Inside your nation, you have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that hate us and are going to kill us from the inside. And I was like, absolutely, I 100% agree with that. And what you described to me is happening in America, and it should scare the shit out of all of us, because those people, and I look at videos differently than other people. People like see the rhetoric. I focus in on, let me look at these faces. And I'm trained to say, okay, that guy, I could, and when I was in my career, I could spot an illegal alien 1,000 yards away. And at the same time, that same person, I can determine, well, that guy's got a card. He's naturalized. He's got an immigration card, something. I can look at these videos and I could say, that guy was brought here fraudulently. That guy has only been here about 3 months. That's all I'm seeing. All I'm seeing is people that just got here and are protesting in our streets.
Yes.
What do you think's going to happen when the shit hits the fan, my friend? Mm-hmm. It's going to be chaos and death.
Yeah.
And everyone, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, that's exactly my thought. It's that it's, I'm not anti-immigration in any sense. What it is that the scenario, the picture you painted, there's people out there, progressives specifically, who are going to go, well, that's crazy. That's MAGA conspiracy theorist thinking. But the thing is it's a reality. Just look at what's happening in the streets right now. It's exactly what you said. It's people who just got here protesting in the streets. Now, the way I look at it is, if you just arrived in a country that's taking you in, that's considering you part of the community, allowing you to work, allowing you to create a future for yourself and your family, I just don't think you're in a place where you can be in the streets waving flags and protesting. I mean, you're just not there. You're not part of it yet, right? I think that's a right you have to earn, right? And
okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, take it one step further. Let's just reverse it. Let's say that 500,000 of us immigrate to Iran.
Oh, yeah.
And we're pissed off and we're waving an American flag. Yeah, America, you suck, Iran, you suck. America first, America first. How long does that last before we're all mowed down?
Exactly. I was going to say, you're dead in an hour, and the media would never even hear about it. Nobody would hear about it. And that's the thing is that, we got to snap out of this, going back to Barack Obama, because you brought up a very interesting subject with him. And it's funny because listening to you talk, it's like the Democrats played the ultimate trick on America with Barack Obama. He was a total Trojan horse, and he was perfect because he was America's first black president. So anytime JJ criticizes Barack Obama. JJ is a white guy in front of an American flag who's criticizing America's first black president. How dare you?
Yep.
And that is the trick that they played. The race trick was the greatest trick the Democrats ever played. And see, I, as a writer, stopped writing during that period because I could not criticize him. I couldn't write anything that was critical of Obama because everybody that I wrote for were afraid of taking collateral damage or being guilty by association because of accusations of racism that would be leveled against me for simply pointing out things that were obvious to everyone who was looking.